what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Casually Fit Podcast. My name's Robert. This is episode 51. I want to thank everybody for coming by today. It is the middle of the week. It is another great week for anybody looking to lose weight, stay healthy, be fit, do all the things that we're trying to do. This week in this episode, I want to show you a fit fighter. I want to show you maybe get into some deep waters, maybe get in trouble. I don't know. And I also just want to end off the show by showing you a fit freak. I will say, if you're watching the podcast, if it looks hot, it's because it is. For whatever reason, the AC is not on. So my irritation levels might be rising as the podcast goes. But, let's get right on into it. So first up, let me show you a fit freak, or not fit freak, a fit fighter. Somebody who has lost 100 pounds, which again, it's always insane whenever I'm looking online trying to find people who have lost weight. I mean, there's so many people who have lost this 100 pounds or more. And it's so inspiring to see these people just out there, first of all, completing it, getting off 100 pounds, and then trying to figure out what's going to happen from there. Struggling with trying to maintain that weight or maybe drop down a little bit more, maybe build some muscle, whatever it is. It's great to see there's a lot of different people out there on very different paths. And this week we got Chris Uplifted on Instagram. Go to @ChrisUplifted, right? So you can get lifted up, okay? Apparently he has a TikTok as well. But yes, this person, Chris, has lost 100 pounds. As you can see with the before and after pictures, the dude's shredded. He's trying to lift up the entire gym right now. He's swole. Compared to in 2016 when he weighed 280 pounds. And after a couple years ago, he weighs 180 pounds, right? Okay, there it is. Today, he went from 280 pounds, right, a little hefty weight, down to 180 pounds about 3 years ago. And then currently he is at 215 pounds, jacked up. He's doing bicep curls and doing all that, trying to get swole. So that's his journey of, again, with many people who are out there showing people that they lost weight. There's a lot of information in these posts. There's a lot of talks about the things that they went through, the things that they do now, what worked, what didn't work. Again, if you're somebody trying to lose weight, use these people to help you maybe be in the same position that Chris is in. And again, this is social media. Be social, DM them, text them, do whatever you want to do, all right? But hit them up if you want. Now, that is a fit fighter of the week. Now, let's get into what I want to talk about today. So first up, I need everybody right now to take a moment and energize your big brain, okay? Take a moment, listen to what I'm about to say, energize that big brain of yours. Everything I am about to say is already been out there, all right? Everything I'm about to say has already been published. And anything that could be misconstrued as me calling blame to certain corporations or saying anything negative about anything, or making any accusations. If the person listening to this thinks that is what I'm doing, you're 100% incorrect, all right? Everything I'm about to say is either out there on the web or a fictional story, okay? All right, now we got that out of the way. First off, I want to talk about a study that has just recently come out. It is about the glycemic index. Now, the glycemic index rates food, typically carbohydrates, pretty much all carbohydrates. It ranks the food on a scale from a high glycemic index food is going to spike your blood sugar the most, right? And then the low glycemic food is obviously not going to spike your blood sugar that much. Typically, all right, and that's a very simple way of explaining things, okay, but I'm trying to do this relatively quick. So that's basically what it does. And the idea behind it is, if we have too much sugar in our blood, just a whole host of things kind of happen. Our response to one thing that can cause is our insulin response. It could kind of disrupt that to where then almost like the floodgates open for the next time we eat, the sugar just goes in our blood and it stays in our blood, which again, this kind of stuff leads to obesity, leads to chronic inflammation. It leads to diabetes and a few more things. Okay, it gets pretty intense with it when we have these spikes in our blood sugar and the long-term effects of continuously having this sort of thing go on. Again, diabetes, things like that. Now, one thing, so first of all, the scale, a typical high glycemic food is going to be like white bread, right? It's going to be white bread or processed sugar, things like that. I think I have a short list I could look at. You know what? Yeah. So it's going to be white bread, and I don't got my list in front of me right now. Well, I do, but I wrote it in a way that makes it impossible for me to find it right now. So I realized I didn't bullet point anything I'm about to say. I just wrote it. All right. So yeah, it's white bread on one end, and then on the other end is like broccoli, things like that. They're carbohydrate foods that don't have anything that's going to spike our blood sugar up that much. And that's kind of the index. If again, typically low glycemic foods are going to be things like broccoli, vegetables, things like that. The ones on the higher echelon of that is going to be white bread, candies, processed food, things like that. So there's recently a study came out around the glycemic index, because it's been something that people have used for a long time, especially people with diabetes, to help them kind of manage their blood sugar. Well, the study came out and said that there's no difference between high glycemic food, white bread, candies, processed food, and things like broccoli, low glycemic food, that there's no difference between the two when it comes to weight gain or weight loss. I can't remember specifically if it was specifically weight gain or weight loss, but they're saying it doesn't matter if your diet consists of either of those. Either of them, it's a mute. It doesn't help your weight loss at all, which right off the bat, when you just look at what kind of foods are in the low glycemic portion and then what foods are in the high glycemic portion, that you kind of see that, hey, this is it's kind of a disconnect. You're telling me that candy and white bread and processed foods, things like that, that is not going to hinder me in my weight loss. And if I switch to broccoli and stuff, that's not going to help my weight loss. Again, off the bat, it seems kind of crazy. And that's what I'm going to be talking about here in a second. But to understand this study that has just come out recently within the past month, I would say within the past couple weeks, to understand this, we got to go back to 1954. In 1954, I believe the president was named Henry Haas. He was president of the Sugar Research Foundation. Okay, this is like the big moving factor in how our diet is kind of constructed. Not necessarily today, because we're piecing apart everything and we're digging into the problems that we've had with our diet. But definitely in the 90s, 80s, and shortly after, Henry Haas started just ramping everything up and putting in this idea. Ever since then, our diets have changed. And so what happened basically is that he paid pretty much these studies that they found out in later documents that they actually funded Harvard scientists and to persuade certain studies in certain areas. Let me read off a quote from him. This is a quote from him. So Henry Haas gave a speech in like 1954 because he saw this huge business opportunity. Again, he is the he's the president of the Sugar Research Foundation, right? Basically, he's the man in charge of some sugar, okay? And his quote is saying, if Americans, should I say it in my 1954? if Americans could be persuaded to eat a lower fat diet for the sake of their health, they would need to replace that fat with something else. Again, he said, if Americans could be persuaded to eat a lower fat diet. So he's talking about persuading Americans to eat a lower fat diet for the sake of their health. That's where they inject the studies. They would need to replace that fat, right? Because they're going from the high fat to the low fat. They're going to have to replace that fat with something else. And that's where the business opportunity in his eyes perks up. And that's where he ends the quote with, America's per capita sugar consumption could go up by a third. So he's seeing this 30% increase possible if Americans can go from, or if Americans can go from a high fat diet to a low fat diet. Now, there's a whole bunch of issues with this, right? Okay. This is a president of a sugar research foundation that is saying, hey, we need to switch people. We need to persuade people on a mass level. He's talking about Americans, right? Hundreds of millions of people he's thinking about in his head. We need to persuade Americans to eat a lower fat diet for the sake of their health. Whether that's true, that is for the sake of their health, or whether we tell them it's for the sake of their health. In the end, it seems it's clear that it was for the sake of their health meant that we're going to tell them that it's for their sake of their health by funding these Harvard scientists to sway the data certain ways and to create these studies. Because now we know that low-fat foods, like they want Americans to go, he wants Americans to go to a low-fat diet, right? Well, foods that are high in fat content are like salmon. Salmon is one of the fattiest fish out there, and it's one of the healthiest fish out there as well. But this is all labeled into the group. They would consider salmon a high-fat food. And so they would say, stay away from salmon. That doesn't seem good, right? Because there are differences in fats. This is something that we're just now really realizing because we've been told all this stuff, growing up or throughout the past couple decades, because it's been this weird, like kind of conspiracy thing that everything's kind of the same. We put all this in bad categories. But now we know that, yes, you should not eat trans fat or saturated fat. Those are two types of bad fat for you. But you can eat monosaccharide fat and polysaccharide fats. Those fats are actually good. And those fats, again, the food that has those is going to be salmon, right? What else is it going to be? Let me tell you in a second if I can find it. Yes. Oh, olive oil. That's the one I was looking for. Olive oil, which is a monosaturated fatty acid, right? So, and again, olive oil has been shown, monosaccharide fatty acids have been shown to actually be good for us. They help us with our energy. They even help with our brain health. But these were all lumped into this category of being like, we're going to replace the salmon and the olive oil with sugar. That's basically what was going on. And they funded a study, this large foundation, Sugar Research Foundation, with ties to the sugar industry, clearly, to the companies, right? They decided that, hey, we're going to have these studies come out and we're going to persuade the science to be in a specific way to where they found that high-fat diets were bad for you, and I forgot what the other study was. But that's what went on in 1954, and that's where we pretty much went against fatty foods. Any food with the word fat in it, it was just like, this is going to be bad. And so everybody coming up, we all thought all these fats are bad. There is no difference. And now we see that there are differences, and the high-fat foods, depending on where it's coming from, is actually going to be pretty beneficial for you. So clearly that's an issue, right? And this is what this dude came out. So if you're living back in 1954, 1960s, you're just getting data saying, hey, high-fat food is bad for you. Stop eating high-fat food. And then you switch to looking for low-fat food. And then that's where the low-fat food label started coming out. And then that's where they interject some sugar. That's where you get the advertisements for the cereal, right? Cereal doesn't have any fat in it. Eat the cereal, okay? Bread, grains, whatever, eat this instead. Hey, Twinkies don't have that much fat in it, right? So eat that instead. And so that's what happened back in 1954. It's just a case where America's diet was shaped off certain studies that were later found to actually be funded by the Sugar Research Foundation, or Big Sugar, as you could say. And it was made as just a business opportunity to make money off of people. Regardless, they clearly do not care about finding actual facts. These people that ran the Sugar Research Foundation did not care about people's health, obviously, right? They're trying to make people eat 30% more sugar, right? We shouldn't even have 30% of our diet consuming of sugar. And now we see in diets now, not so much, it is tampering down now, but surely in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and even now, there is data now, but our sugar consumption on an average American level is extremely high. I think the number that we should be eating is like 20 to 30 grams a day, and most people are eating over 100, over 150 grams per day. And so this is in part why, all right? It's also decisions and everything like that. But again, we were going off of studies. We were going off this research that said that, hey, these things are okay. And now we found out they're not okay. It was all just a facade, just to make more money, driven by people who, again, clearly do not care about the people at all, about any people, about Americans or anybody but themselves and whoever's close around them. And I'm sure, if they wanted to, they don't really care too much about the people around them either. But so that's an issue, right? That happened in 1954. Okay. Now what happened in 2015? Well, here's something that happened in 2015 that I just found out about while I was researching this. Well, first of all, let's go back. Let me just give you a quote from this guy, because I want to give you a quote. So Jim Krieger, an executive director of Health Food America, said in a comment about the paper that came out that said the Sugar Research Foundation basically lied to us and funded these Harvard scientists and changed the way we thought of sugar and fatty foods. He said, we have to ask ourselves how many lives and dollars could have been saved and how different today's health picture would be if the industry were not manipulating science in this way. So again, this isn't me really saying, you're listening to a guy, you're listening to kind of like a radio show or podcast, a guy on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, whatever it is. You're listening to me say these things, but this guy is the executive director of Health Food America, right? And he's saying from the data that he's seen, which is pretty much same data that I've seen, that look, these people are manipulating the science to persuade Americans to eat a certain way. That is a fact, and that is what actually happened, which is crazy. Now let's get into 2015. Now I'm not going to say the name because, again, I'm up and coming, right? Nobody wants their flame, blown out right in the beginning. I want to burn for a little bit. Or maybe I want to rise a little bit, right? So I will say the company that has a can that is, how can I say this? It is a company that serves a dark brown, black, bubbly beverage wrapped in Christmas colors, I will say, right? That company, it was found out that in 2015, that company paid $1.5 million to a nutrition nonprofit, which is whatever. Maybe they want to help Americans with their nutrition. Maybe, I mean, that's a noble goal, right? Maybe that's what they want to do. Well, this nutrition, whatever, is called Global Energy Balance Network. And they were, researching nutrition, researching certain things and related to health. Now, again, if they would have just said, yeah, they gave us some money and they talked to us a little bit, again, that's still like, hey, why is this big, large company talking to this nonprofit foundation and kind of telling them what to kind of put out and what to look into, right? That even if they were pretty honest with us, we would still be suspect because it is suspect, okay? But what happened is that this company, the Christmas Color Company, gave them $1.5 million. They found out, the media at the time, whatever, found out that this was going on. And the answer that Global Energy Balance Network had when they were asked, they said that it doesn't, like, in essence, it doesn't matter. If I get these quotes wrong, again, this is a fictional story. So no company can come after me. I don't know. But but they said, they put out a statement that the Christmas Colored Company had no input into the foundation whatsoever. So typically we can take no input to mean there was no communication and, like they say, no input. Well, of course, with everything, leaked conversations came out, which is great for us, bad for them. And through these communications, they found that Coke helped pick the group's leaders. So they picked the people leading the foundation. They edited its mission statement. So imagine these people these are such distant people, right? Coca-Cola and this foundation is so separate from each other that Coke said, I said the name. All right, so the Christmas Color Company, right, my bad. The Christmas Color Company, that was a fake name, right? That was fake news. The Christmas Color Company said that, they were so distant that they decided to change this mission statement for this foundation. I mean, clearly that does not show that they're distant from each other at all. What else did they do? Let me find the part. They also suggested articles and videos for its website. So this foundation is basically like a facade arm of this company, right? The foundation is made to look as if it's helping the public, but clearly in that it's an unbiased source to help the public. And clearly the can company came in through the back, $1.5 million, set up its leaders, made its mission statement, and suggested what articles and information should be coming out of that foundation and how that foundation should represent itself online. All right, so that's not really a separate thing. They're clearly together. It's one thing, okay? And let me see. And the president of the foundation, right? The president of the Global Energy Balance Network, that president sent an email to an executive director of the can company. And that said, I want to help your company avoid the image of being a problem in people's lives, right? We want to help you reverse all the data that's coming out about how unhealthy your company is. And this is where the quote continues, and back to being a company that brings important and fun things to them. All right, we want to put a mask on Americans, and we want to help you do that. We know that you have a bad reputation and that there's all this data saying that you're creating this obesity epidemic, right? You're creating all this diabetes and you're creating all these health issues. We get that, and that's a problem. So we want to actually help you have some fun. We want to make things a little bit more fun, and we're going to help you do that. All right. This is, again, supposed to be an unbiased source. And this is in 2015. Okay. So this is another example of a large company, unhealthy company, that is in cahoots and using some sort of foundation to persuade Americans' perception in one way or the other, right? And it's more towards an unhealthy direction, clearly, because they are for their product, and their product, when used consistently, is bad, clearly. Okay, so they're trying to protect their profits. They're trying to protect the company. You can even say they're trying to protect their employees, right? So they're trying to not have a huge decrease in sales, and they're trying not to be just pushed aside. And so that's where they're coming up with this idea of how can we kind of switch this around? Well, hey, it's happened before. It still goes on. Why don't we try manipulating some data, you know? So in essence, that's, again, this is all a fictional story, right? So that's what it was found out to be in leaked conversations, just where a very large company came in contact with the foundation, and they're putting out information. They're already caught in a bold-faced lie, a huge lie. The foundation said that there's no input. They said that there's no input from the large company. And again, that company founded the leaders, suggested the articles, basically did everything, right? Not everything, but they did a lot of things. And this is what the CEO of that can company said. He said, well, it has become clear to us that we were not a sufficient level of transparency. It became clear to us that we just got caught in our lie, all right? And with regard to the company's involvement with the global energy balance network, right? So what is that statement? That's not admitting anything. That's just like, that is a business jargon, just robot statement that they put out. They clearly, possibly don't care about other people's health. And then they go on saying, clearly, we have more work to do to reflect the values of this great company in all that we do. Again, what is that? He referred to his company as great when it's coming into question that they're pumping $1.5 million into this false foundation, right? That is misleading people. This is a great company, though, right? So that's another example. And then that leads us to today. All right. That leads us to, well, here we go. Here is another quote from Jim Krieger, the executive director of Health Food America. And he said, only 50 years later are we, only 50 years later are we waking up to the true harm from sugar. Yet, industry continues to use its time-honored tactics. All right, again, the tactics that we're talking about of creating doubt about valid science they deem damaging to its bottom line and deflecting blame from their products. That is such a poignant, precise statement from Jim Krieger that is, again, bearing out to be accurate as things leak. If things didn't leak, we wouldn't have this firm. This would all just be some giant conspiracy, right? But this is from leaked data. The things I'm talking about is leaked data from the Sugar Research Foundation and from this global, I can't remember the name, Global Energy Balance Network, which now, after this happened, Coke had to pull its funding. And what happened to them? Oh, they went away. The foundation ceased to exist because they didn't have any more money. And so they're no longer around. Okay. Okay, right? And then the only reason why we know about this is because their emails were leaked out, all right? Hackers, I would assume, but God bless the hackers sometimes, I guess. And again, that leads us to today where, we're talking about sugar, we're talking about sugary drinks, And sugar is just a bad word, I guess, now. Sugar is just, it's a bad word. Everybody knows it's been outed. It's been revealed, it's out there. People know what's going on. So now, what's the last stand? Well, carbohydrates, because sugar can often hide behind the name carbohydrates, as far as what it does to our bodies when we consume too much of it. And because carbohydrates just get broken down into glucose, and glucose is the amount, that's the amount of sugar that's in our blood. So that's where we're at with gluten-free diets now, low-carb diets, etc. Now we're on to this carbohydrate thing. And you can definitely see it is getting hot in here, huh? You don't know. Hold on. Yeah, there's no AC right now, so I'm burning. I got these lights coming on me, talking about this intense stuff. It's getting hot. All right, so I'm sweating up a storm right now. So yeah, just to end this off, that's what brings us to today and the low glycemic, high glycemic index, and talking about carbs. Again, recently, in the past 5 or so years, carbohydrates have been vilified. Carbohydrates have been pinpointed as the next thing to go, especially from the health nuts. Like the health nuts, they're still yelling about sugar, which they should be. And maybe I'm a health nut too. But they're also now talking about carbohydrates, which carbohydrates, I will say, they're not all bad. And I'm not really a supporter of eliminating all carbohydrates from your diet or anything like that. And that's the same for sugar as well. I mean, you should have a very little amount of sugar, but you shouldn't eliminate it completely from your diet. Because guess what? Things that taste really good got sugar in it. So I'm not a fan of getting rid of pleasurable things like that, as long as you can keep it in a small dose. And again, same thing goes for carbohydrates, except you can have a little bit more you can have a decent amount more carbohydrates in compared to the amount of sugar. But either way, again, that's in the past 5 years, a low carb diet, gluten-free stuff, that's all been coming out. So if you're part of a major company, right? If you're part of this huge company that pushes out cereal and these grain-based, these carbohydrate-based foods, and there's this huge push to go away from this, again, what's more than likely going to happen? You're going to try to protect your bottom line. You're going to try to shift attention. You're going to try to deflect blame. You're going to try to do all these things if you just, if you put yourself into that business mindset to where a person can go away from their natural tendency or just their human emotions. They could ignore their human emotions of them screwing people over and possibly killing people and, doing this on a massive scale. They can push themselves to do that by just saying, oh, well, this is just a business. I got to keep the business running. And right now the product is under attack and we need to switch it around. And so that's what leads me to, let me find this list. Hold on. And that's what, hold on. Can't do two things at once. I got a lot of things going on. Here it is. Is this it? I don't think this is it. I got to find it. But that's what leads me to the study that I was talking about with this debate about carbohydrates. And again, a study came out where recently it said high glycemic foods will not make you gain any more weight than low glycemic foods. Again, high glycemic foods is white. Here's the list I was looking for earlier. Include white bread, cereal, cakes, cookies, and fries. High glycemic foods include white bread, cereal, cakes, cookies, and fries. Low glycemic foods are Brussels sprouts, broccoli, and sourdough bread. Okay, and they are saying that high glycemic foods will not make you gain any more weight than low glycemic foods. If you reword it, high glycemic foods, or they're saying cereal, cookies, and cakes and fries. Look, dummy, they're not going to make you gain any more weight than Brussels sprouts, broccoli, and sourdough. You idiot. What? Okay. Now, first off, if you were to make that statement, you would probably want if you're part of these large corporations, you would want to actually do a study. What they did is they just looked at a bunch of observational studies. They didn't gather up their own people, right? Their own study group of people and have these certain parameters and set all this stuff up. They didn't do that. They just looked at other data that didn't necessarily do that. That like the studies they looked at weren't specifically for this, right? They're just looking at this secondary data, and they're trying to, again, come up with this thing where they can come out and say, hey, look, I don't know what these crazy people are talking about with these cookies, with all this sugar. That's not gonna help you, or that's not gonna make you gain any more weight than broccoli and Brussels sprouts. Again, ridiculous statement, but this is a study that has just come out, and this is what they're saying. And again, they didn't come up with their own study. Well, here's the problem with it. I wish I had, I can't believe I didn't save the name. I was going to read it off. Basically, this study was funded, the study was funded by, I wish I had the name. My bad. I don't know how this name. Yeah. I can't even say the name. Well, again, this is all a fictional story, so I'll just make up a name. But this study was funded by a foundation that calls itself like Whole Grain Society, or it's just something about bread, basically. That's all it is. It's like the Grain Society or Grain Council. It's one of those things, right? And that's who funded this glycemic index study. You would kind of want like an unbiased person to do this study about carbohydrates. You wouldn't want a website or a foundation that prides itself on being all about grains. First off, so that's already a negative. You wouldn't want that. Well, when you look into the investors of this organization, well, guess what? The investors, first of all, it's a long list of investors that I wanted to read off to you just now, but I can't remember the name of the organization, and for some reason it's not written down. That's my bad. But it's a huge list of investors. Some of them included Kellogg's, General Mills, and Kroger. What do they make? What does Kellogg's make? What does General Mills make? Clearly steak, right? These are chicken companies. These companies make fish. They make salads. Obviously not. It's Kellogg's, General Mills, and Kroger funded a study, right? Because they pay money to this foundation. They give money to this foundation that produced this study that says that high glycemic food is no different from low glycemic food when it comes to weight gain. They're, again, diverting attention from their products because their products are on the high glycemic index. They're diverting our attention away from that, and they're saying that you're crazy for thinking about this because we have this study, right? Again, this is an issue that we came across in 2015. We came across in 1954, and God knows we know that it's everywhere else as well. It's all across. These are just the ones who have gotten caught. Okay, and I'm not saying these people have gone caught. This study just came out. I'm not saying really anything. Again, this is a fictional story. But I just thought it was weird that a study came out that said that, in essence, white bread, cookies, cakes, cereal is not going to make you gain weight any more than broccoli and Brussels sprouts and sourdough bread. So again, I thought that was an issue, and I tried to lay out this story a little bit. This is the first time I've ever laid out anything like this. I'm going to try to do it in the future because I like researching this stuff and looking at it. I really wish I had the name of that website for you. But that's just what I wanted to bring to your attention. The reason why is because you got to look out for what's going on, all right? You got to be paying attention to, or just listen to me or whatever, but you got to know that everything's not on the up and up. Not everybody is on the up and up. And there's some people out there who happen to be attached to some large corporations that really don't have our best interests in mind at all. And we got to kind of navigate our way through that. So I just want to bring this, to people's attention. Just thought it was interesting. And yeah, that's it. I really wish I bullet pointed everything out. I just wrote all this out as if I was writing an article, and it makes it very hard to find all the talking points I wanted to hit up. So you live and you learn, I guess. Let me end this off with the Fit Freak of the Week, because I am burning up. I am so hot right now. I'm sweating. I probably look like I'm in the sauna right now. It's ridiculous. I'm about to go surfing. I gotta get out of here. Let me show you Isaac M. All right, he's all about kettlebell training. It's Isaac Miranda Fitness. He's a Fit Freak of the Week. If you go over to him, as like many people I show you, just messing around with kettlebells all day long. That's all a lot of these kettlebell people, they love kettlebells, right? That's all you're really gonna see them doing. But again, they're some of the most fit people. And the people who mess around with kettlebells are for sure some of the most, I would say, flexible. They're not like the strongest people, but they're very strong, and they're very mobile and agile because they're doing these dynamic movements, these power movements, and some of these movements involve some sort of agility. And so when you do that consistently over time, you become very athletic and very healthy. And so that's why, again, you look at any of these guys, I mean, they look big and strong because they are fairly strong and you could say big, but also within them, they have a very robust cardio system. Their cardio is usually pretty high because they are doing these intense repetitions, these compound movements. And that is something that is just a healthier way to kind of work out versus going in and slapping on 500 pounds on the bench and just doing 2 repetitions and then sitting for 30 minutes and then doing it again. It's a different kind of way to work out. Because if you look at somebody who is typically a bodybuilder, they look big, they look strong. When they're in bodybuilding shape, they're about to get into a competition, they're actually at their weakest. They look great, but they're at their weakest, and most of them have absolutely no cardio system whatsoever. They're not focused on any endurance or building up any cardio at all. All right. So to me, that's an issue. I don't know how I got on this. I was trying to end this off. Either way, go check out Isaac Miranda Fitness. He's out there. He's an IFBB pro. So he was in that bodybuilding world. And now he just messes around with kettlebells. But you can see somebody who is pushing their body and it's working out. So go check him out. Thanks for listening to this made-up fictional story about fictional corporations doing really shady things. But yeah, have a good one.